Hello.
Namaskar, Namaskar, uh, respected convener, coordinator, and host of Philosophy Family, Professor Pramod Kumar Das, assistant coordinators, Dr. Kailash Chandra Mahana sir, and Patit Pawan Das, recording in charge of this event, Sri Devasis Chadangi, the moderator of today's webinar, Sri Devasis Chadangi, and the speaker of this webinar series, Dr. Anup Rai and Jatin Bisoi, and dear participants of this webinar. We are into the third day of the webinar series on ethics and applied ethics. Today, as usual, we have two sessions. In the first session, we have Dr. Anup Rai, and in the second session, we have Dr. Jatin Bisoi. Dr. Anup Rai will be speaking on deontology, and Dr. Jatin Bisoi will be speaking on moral relativism and ethical subjectivism. Before inviting the speaker of the first session, Dr. Anup Rai, let me give a brief introduction of Dr. Roy. Dr. Anup Rai is a retired reader in logic and philosophy. He retired from Indira Gandhi Women's College, Cuttack in 2019. If I look into this profile, I find that he has done his master's degree from Utkal University, and he was awarded the doctoral degree by B.R. Ambedkar Bihar University, Bihar. He worked on the title Logic of Faith for his doctoral degree. If I look into his teaching career, he started as a lecturer in logic and philosophy in PN College, Khurda in 1992. A year later, he was transferred to VN College, Jajpur, where he continued for 5 years. In 1998, he was transferred to Dharmasala College, and later on to Indira Gandhi Women's College in 2008. In 2019, he retired from the service from Indira Gandhi Women's College, Cuttack. He published a number of articles in daily newspapers, magazines, and also in AOPA proceedings. He is an active participant in AOPA meetings, and he contributes articles in those yearly meetings. He has written a number of books. Some of them include Plus 2 Logic in Odia, Logic and Scientific Method in English, Vyavaharika Niti Shastra, Niti Darshana, Dharma Darshana, and Bharatiya Darshana Prabaha in Odia. We have seen Dr. Roy speaking in the Philosophy Family earlier in the webinar series in Indian philosophy, where he spoke on the Buddhist and Jaina ethics. Philosophy Family is really fortunate enough to have Dr. Roy to address on deontology today. Now I request Dr. Anup Rai to present his lecture. Over to Dr. Anup Rai.
Thank you, Om, and good evening, all the members of Philosophy family and all the viewers to this webinar. To our series on morality or moral philosophy is going on. Morality is developing all the while throughout the ages. Human society progresses with the progress of morality. From the days when man was living in the caves and till today, we have developed a lot. I am not talking of the material development. I am talking of moral development, and finer with the development of the society, that development has been done by the morality, moral philosophy, moral concepts. Finer the moral concepts, more developed and cultured is the society. It may so happen through the ages, we have seen, human history has seen, that it may so happen that a situation arises when man is cross-fixed. He doesn't know how to what to. A situation arises when the prevailing codes of morality are not sufficient enough or weak enough to solve the problem of that day. At that time, what we do? We revise, we refine, and we rewrite the moral philosophical problems or moral rules. Professor Moorhead is of the opinion that human consciousness has developed in 3 stages. In the first stage, he was thinking that is good, what is written in the laws. The moral laws are the laws of the society, laws of the state, or the laws of the religion, divine laws. They are completely guided by the rules. And then after consciousness developed and the human mind developed, and they thought that there is something in me, there is something within that has to decide what is good or what is bad. Our conscience, our consciousness decides what should we do, what should we do, what should not do. That is the second stage. And in the third stage, what happened if I decide what is good and you decide what you do, good, then we may differ in a particular case whether it is good or bad. In the third stage, man decided that no, there must be universal rule which is to be followed universally, uniformly by everybody, so that moral concepts will be uniform. Based upon this theory of Moorhead, Professor Broad has divided moral concepts into 2 types. One is teleological, other is deontological. Teleological theory is the third stage. According to teleology, that action is good, which gives us good result. Our moral concepts are result oriented. The moral rules are means to meet an end. If the end is good, then action is good. If the end is bad, the result is bad, the consequence is bad, then action is bad. So, it is teleological or purposive. Our purpose is to do something good, and always the basic purpose is the human welfare. For the welfare of the humanity, whatever we do, it must be done, the result must be good, then the action is good. Action is the means, result is the end, and it is result oriented. Action, the rules doesn't have any value. It is the result, consequence, that is that decides whether an action is good or bad. But opposite to it, there is deontological theory. That is our today's topic of discussion. Deontological theory, deontology. The word deontology comes from the Greek word deon. Deon. Deon means duty. According to deontology, the action is good or bad is decided by the rule itself, not by the consequences. Something is good or bad is decided by the rule, not by the consequence. It may so happen that I did a good action, but result is bad. The value of my action, sometimes it may happen that the good is more than evil, the consequence. Then the action is good. Teleological theory also says that. But even sometimes it happens that evil is more than the good. Still, the action is good if we are following a set of rules. This theory, deontology, is supported by or advocated by intuitionism and rigorism of Kant. I have told you that the first two stages are deontological, and the third stage of human consciousness, as Moorhead says, is teleological. Deontological theory gives importance. There is the difference between the two. Deontological theory gives importance to the rule itself. Teleological theory gives importance to the result. Action is, deontology says, action is good or bad is decided by the rule. It is good to tell the truth, so you must tell the truth. It is good to keep your promise, so you have to keep the promise. That is deontological. Teleological theory says, no, it is not the theory. Theory doesn't have any value. It is the result. Whatever theory I may follow, if the result is bad, then action is bad. Action is bad. So this is the difference between teleological theory and deontological theory. Deontology, if we define the word deontology, deontology is a normative ethical theory that morality of an action should be based on whether that action is right or wrong under a series of rules, rather than based on the consequences of the action. It is not the according to deontology, it is not the consequence, but the series of rules on which the goodness or badness of the action is based on. The rule is important. Teleology theory says that rule is the means, end is the human wellness, human welfare. Deontology says, no, the rule itself has intrinsic value. Rule itself is the end, whatever may be the result. Okay. So it is the principle is good. Deontology says that apart from the good or bad value that it brings into existence, a moral theory has some features, some elements inherent in it. There is something in the rules of the moral theories, in the moral rules, moral code of conduct, which is not purely result oriented. Yes, result is there, but they say that apart from the result, there remains something in the rule itself that is intrinsically good. So the rule has to be taken care of. Rule is important. If the rule is obeyed, then the action is good. If the rule is not obeyed, the action is bad. The principle of maximizing the balance of good or evil, I may quote Franken, the principle of maximizing the balance of good over evil, no matter for whom, is either not a moral criterion, or at least it is not only basis of the ultimate end. That result, consequence, is not the ultimate end. It is the rule itself. It has intrinsic value, which is the ultimate. Ultimately, that decides whether action is good or bad. You need not have to worry about the consequence. You are the general of the army. It is your duty. You are leading the army. It is your duty to fight. You need not. It is not your duty to see whether who is standing before me, whether there will be seen if I kill them or not, whether I will win the war or not. This is not your duty. Your duty purely to fight, to give your best in the war field. That is the only criterion. Duty for duty's sake. I have to obey the rules. That is the theory in deontology. Sometimes it may happen that a particular action or principle may not produce more good than evil. It may happen that I do something, but the result is not as good as I thought, or less good and more bad. Still, the action is good because it has its own value. Roaming in the forest for 14 years is no joke, not a pleasant experience. Still, I have to obey the promise of the parent. Rule is keep your promise, obey your parents. I have to obey the promise of my father. So I have to go, I will go to the jungle for 14 years. Sending a pregnant wife to jungle is not a pregnant wife to whom you love so much. To jungle is not a pleasant experience, very pleasant decision to take. But you have to take it because this is the rule. Therefore, Sri Ramchandra was Maryada Purushottam. It is the rule that is important, not the ontology, not the consequence. Consequence was bad. After going for 14 years to the jungle, their family got devastated. He and his wife and brother all suffered a lot. Still, that action is good because he obeyed the parents' promise. That is the ontology. Deontology is of two kinds. One is act deontology, other is rule deontology. According to act, let me tell that Butler, teacher, Carrot, they are all the advocates of act ontology, act deontology. According to act deontology, an action is good or bad is not decided by any moral rule. It is decided by the circumstances in the situation arising at that time. Suddenly, I faced a situation. I will decide what to do. There is no rule to follow. It is the situational ethics, you can say, that it is the situation which decides. It is the circumstances which decide what is good or what is bad. I will take my decision what to do in these circumstances. This should be done in this circumstance. That is act deontology. To them, there is no principle, no universal rule. If at all it is there, it is of no use. Man decides what to do in the point of time, at that point of time when the thing is happening. And that decides whether an action is good or bad. And act deontology says that an action is good or bad, you decide under the circumstances prevailing at that time, not by any principle. If, they say that every situation, every moral situation has some unique elements. No two theories, no two moral problems are similar. Killing a person is bad. Somebody is coming and somebody came and killed a dacoit or a murderer killed. Killing somebody is bad. It is bad. But suppose somebody dashed into my house and wanted with a revolver. What I did, I got some sharp weapon in my hand. I swung it. It hit the person and he died. I killed him out of my self-defense, for my self-survival, not for any other purpose. This murder and that murder are two different things. And the action is taken, decision is taken at that point of time. And accordingly, what is the circumstance on which I have killed the person, that is the deciding factor. Accordingly, this murder and that murder are not same. And if we go to the legal court, obviously the result of punishment or verdict will not be the same. It is so. Therefore, Act deontology says that every situation, moral situation, has some unique element. That unique element decides what is good or what is bad. Every event takes place under the circumstances having some unique element present in it. Apart from the moral rules, there remains something particularly unique to it, special to that action, which decides an action is good or bad. And then question arises: how to decide, who to decide whether the action is good or bad, what decision I will take, how can I take the decision? The person is coming. How can I take the decision? It is some philosopher, Act deontology said that it is by my intuition. I intuitively decide what is to do, what is good or what is bad, and accordingly I act. And intuitionist and existentialist, it is the decision after considering the situation. Anyway, intuition is the guiding factor at that time when I decide whether something is good or bad. This is one theory. Again, Act deontology got divided. This view that moral laws have no role to play, it irritates some. There are some moderate, this is extreme Act deontology, and there is another form, another group of Act deontologists, they are moderate. According to moderate Act deontology, yes, it is true. When Act deontologists say that decision has to be taken, they agree with the Act deontologist, extreme Act deontologist, that it is true that decision has to be taken at that point of time by my intuition or decision, whatever, at that point of time. But every moral law has some universality or universal element present in it, unique to it, present in it. When I take a decision, may I take that example of Socrates as given in Republic of Plato. Plato has mentioned the example that consider the situation. Suppose your friend has given you a revolver to keep it with yourself, with the promise that whenever he will ask for it, you will hand over him. Obviously, it is his property. He will take away whenever he likes. That is the rule. And you have promised that I will give you back your revolver whenever you like, whenever you ask for. One day, suddenly you saw that your friend is coming to you in a very inebriated, in a furious uh, state of mind. He is very angry, very furious, and asking you, give me the revolver. The mood in which he is, it is dangerous. You observe, it is dangerous to give him the revolver, give him the weapon. You decided that I will not give. So you didn't give him the revolver. It is the break of promise. You have promised that I will give you your thing whenever you like, but now you are not giving. And then after, when you didn't give, and then after, when his anger came down, he realized whatever happened. This situation, here, the situation decided what to do, what not to do. Situation demanded you should not hand over not the moral rule. Moral rule is to give him back. But situation demanded that you should not give the revolver at that time, that point of time. So what happened? You didn't give, and that is act deontology says. But moderate deontology say that it automatically creates a moral law, universal moral law, that when such a situation arises, you, when giving back the revolver may create another more dangerous situation, you should not give it. That creates a moral law automatically. Every moral law has a universal element in it. It is hidden in it. You decide, and it became a moral law. How? Now, under these and these circumstances, one should not hand over this. One should not act in this way. Automatically, a universal moral law comes in. So, moderate ideontologists, they recognize the role of a universal moral law, universal element in it. It is by our experience, we automatically form a universal law, and every moral law has a universal element hidden in it. And now the problem arises in the theory of act deontology. One is how to decide in a situation whether it is good, I should do this or that. If I do this, it is good. If I do that, it is bad. How to decide? Act deontologists say that it is our intuition, prajna. It is our intuition which guides us to decide whether action is good or bad. But psychologists say there is no such intuitive faculty in human mind. Human mind doesn't possess any intuitive faculty by which we can decide. Second thing, the theory that action has to be taken, decision has to be taken then and there on the spot in the situation, that under these circumstances I have to do this. If in every situation, in every event, you sit down and think of taking decision, it is not possible. It takes away a lot of time and energy. So, think of a situation. A man is lying unconscious on the railway track and train is fast approaching. You cannot sit there and think over, ponder, and analyze the circumstances to whether I should pull back the person or not. It will be too late. It is an instant decision. and that instant decision is not, it is automatically guided by an universal law. You cannot, there is no time to decide and ponder whether existentialist theory or intuitionism, whether they say analyze the circumstances, take a decision. There is no time to analyze, to decide what to do, what is the background, what should I do, what should I do. There is no time, just go and pull him out of the trap. Save the life, that is the rule. That is the universal we have to face. And therefore, and second thing, that we in the society, we learn universal laws. We learn from our elders, from our parents and grandparents, that you should do this and you should not do this. All our education is basically moral education. In the behind every moral education, there is morality playing a role. What should be the decision of under the circumstances of corona? The decision has to be taken, and decision is human welfare or anything. I say that we learn from our elders, and what we learn from our elders, they have some universal concepts. Otherwise, if you don't accept the books, moral books, you don't accept the commandments, you don't accept the moral theories, you don't accept the decision advice of our elders, the society cannot run. It is not possible to do that. Therefore, universal element has to be taken care of, has to be should be our guide. Again, universal, every situational decision, they say, ideology said that decision is situational decision. We have to take the decision on the situation itself. No situational decision is a purely particular one. Is not a purely particular one. Every decision has, I have told you that something general implicit in it. When I say, when your friend is asking for your revolver, there is a general rule following that this should not, I should not give in these circumstances because it may create another. So implicitly, general law is always hidden in any situational decision. No decision is purely particular. So, due to this lackings, defects in act deontology theory, another theory evolved, that is rule deontology. Rule deontology is a theory which wanted to take care of or eliminate the defects in act deontology. According to rule deontology, an action is good, and therefore not only good, any moral obligation are necessarily linked to a series of set of objective rules. Every moral action is linked to some objective, one or more objective rules. I have told you that Kant and divine law theory, they are rule deontologists. According to this theory, we should obey the moral law whatever may be the circumstance. We have some universal moral codes of conduct are universal universal by nature, and in whatever may be the circumstance, we have to follow the rules, we have to obey the rules, and accordingly we act, so that whatever may be the they are not talking of the result, they are talking the rules itself. The rule are end in itself. The rule is end in itself, not the consequence. Consideration of consequence is not there. Every moral rule has some intrinsic value, some intrinsic universal element. Of this moral, on the basis of this universal element or universal law, we have to take the decision. The law, moral law are important. Moral laws are universal. Moral laws are valuable by themselves, and we have to obey the rules of morality. And rule deontology is purely, is definitely not teleological. They say that consideration of result, consequence is completely ruled out. There is no consideration of result. It is simply the act for the sake of act, duty for the sake of duty. I have to do because this is the rule. And rule deontology is based on some basic moral principle. These are the two features of rule deontology, that it is anti-teleological and non-teleological, and it is based on one or more rules. Those rules have to follow. Then the problem is we follow the rules, those are there, and moral principles have to be followed so that we can get the moral law or good or bad action. It is the moral of conscience, rule of conscience. Moral laws are the rule of conscience. Our conscience is the ultimate. It decides which action is good. Our conscience frames the rules. Rules are not framed just ordinarily. It is our conscience which has framed the rules. And it is rule deontology means rule of conscience. Of course, act deontologists also accept the role of conscience in their theory. They say, but the difference between act deontology and rule deontology on conscience is that rule deontology says that conscience is the guide, it is the ruler, it decides which action is good or which action is bad. It is the set of rules previously established that decides which action is good or which action is bad. But act deontology, they also accept the role of conscience, but they say it is conscience just helps us. Conscience just helps us to take a decision. Rule deontology says that it is the conscience which takes the decision. Act deontology says it is the conscience which helps us. It is not the rule ultimate. It is not rule of conscience. It only helps us while taking the decision. There is a difference between the two. So, the basic of rule deontology is that our course of action is to be decided by some basic standing principles, like telling the truth and not to steal, keep your promise, these things. Again, promise, problem arises, objections raised. That the rule deontology says it is the rule, moral rule, that is universal, that is ultimate, that decides, that is the. It is not violable. You cannot violate them. But objection arises. People raise the objection that you see, though there are universal rules are there, moral codes of conduct are there, still there is not a single moral rule without any deviation. Every moral rule, even though they are universal or accepted by everybody, every moral rule has some contradictions, have some contrary instances. have some um, deviations. It is not always good to tell the truth. It is not always good to keep your promise. It is not always good to tell the truth. I have told you. Or, because I have given example in a previous talk also that telling or breaking promise. I have gave the example now that it is not always good to keep the promise, and it is not also good. I have given the example of Muhammad that to tell the truth. Sometimes it is good to tell the. It is good, not at all bad, to tell a lie. Lackings are there, deviations are there. This objection is answered by philosopher Ross. He says that yes, though every universal laws are every moral laws are universal in character, every law are having some deficiency, some kind of deviation. Sometimes it happens that we have to deviate from the path of established rules. Ross proposes that if we accept those deviations with the rule itself, then there will be no problem. Fact is, moral situations are very critical, very complicated. In one moral situation, there are different factors, different laws are working together. So it may happen that one law contradicts with the other. Because there are different factors working at the same time, there may be some deviation, some contrary situation. Therefore, we have to accept that deviations will be there, and if we accept those deviations, then there will be no problem. Ross says that there are two kinds of duty. One is duty proper, other is prima facie duty. Duty proper is, suppose you are a principal of a college. You have promised your employee, one of the employees, that he applied for that I will give you 1 day leave on say Monday. You have, because he has to go to visit a doctor for some medical checkup. That is, so giving him, allowing him 1 day leave on Monday is your duty proper, because you have to keep your promise. But suppose some situation arose, certain situation arose. A letter came that education minister or commissioner is coming to visit our college. At that time, you have to again revise. You have to again rethink of your decision whether to give the leave or not. Then that is called, when the situation arose in a new way, you have to decide in a new way whether to allow him leave or not, or the opposite. He went for medical checkup, and in medical checkup, it is found that he is corona positive. The new problem, corona positive. Then, not 1 day, the authority has to give him more than many days of leave, because for the benefit, for the care of other employees. So decision at that time, even though you have promised 1 day, duty proper, that promising or giving 1 day leave is duty proper, but changing the decision or taking a new decision in a changed situation, that's called prima facie duty. Ross says this, if we act this in a moral situation, basic duty proper doesn't change. What changes is the prima facie duty. Giving 1 day of CL is okay, but when new situation arises, that is deviation. Telling truth is good, But in such a typical situation, telling truth may not be true. And that is called prima facie duty. And white lie. Sometimes we have to tell a lie uh, to save a situation. That is called white lie. Girl says, boy says to the girl, तेरे लिए सोने का बंगला बनाऊंगा और चांद तारे तोड़ लाऊं तेरे लिए. These are white lies. You need not believe it. But it is white lies means harmless lies. It is said for some purpose they are harmless lies, some purpose, but not. It is not actually deviating the universality or the basic moral concept. So, what changes is the prima facie duty, not the basic duty. And if we include, if we make the rule that in every situation except in case of white lie, you should tell the truth, then it's universal law. Ross says, therefore, here proposes that accept the deviations in the law itself, then there will be no problem. And then these theories are very much interesting, And this rule deontology theory or act deontology says, rule deontology theory is newly told by another great philosopher, that is Immanuel Kant, the German philosopher. His theory is known as rigorism. I will not go to the detail of rigorism because already a few days later our Pramod sir has already discussed rigorism in details with you in a beautiful manner. Still, I have to know this is Kant's theory is a kind of rule deontology theory. According to Kant, his theory is known as, according to Kant, every moral law or ultimate moral law is a categorical imperative. Categorical imperative means the laws are categorical and they are imperative. What is imperative? Now we have human beings have freedom of will. We can, when a situation arises, we can decide by guided by others or by my own conscience. If I am guided by others to take a decision, then my will is not a free will. So I have to take decision from my own conscience. And goodwill is the basic criteria which decides which action is good or bad. And it is categorical. The moral laws are categorical. It is the duty for duty's sake. It is your duty to do this, you have to do this. There is no if, buts are attached. There is no qualifications are attached. Nothing is there. Just tell the truth means tell the truth. Whatever may be the result, don't bother for the result. But keep your promise means keep your promise. That is categorical imperative. And he can't reject teleology outright. Outrightly, he rejects teleology. He says that the result of an action is not at all a consideration. We must not think about it. It is the rule. And every moral rule is an end in itself, it has its own intrinsic inherent value. It cannot be deviated, it cannot be changed. It is moral laws are not a means to achieve an end. It is the end in itself. You don't consider any other factors except obeying the rules. It is your duty to work, you have to work. Don't think what will happen. Duty for the sake of duty. Result oriented, don't bother about the result. We are coming precariously close to Nishkam Karma of Gita, because it is the example of Gita. So, moral laws are to be obeyed as a means to get the desired, not to be obeyed. Moral laws are to be not to be obeyed to get a desired result. Whatever may be the result, you have to follow it. Kant says that nothing is important, nothing to be taken into consideration. Categorically, because categorically you have to obey. It is an imperative. It is an imperative means it's instruction, moral instruction given to you by yourself, by your own conscience. Nobody will guide you to do this or do that. Then you don't have freedom of will. You don't have to guide by others. Your conscience is your dictator, director. You decide by your own conscience, so it is imperative. Because it is imperative, it is universal. No ifs and buts are attached. No, nothing is to be considered except obeying the rule. So it is universal. And it is obviously categorical because it is unqualified, it is unconditional, it has to be obeyed without any other consideration. It is categorical. And it is anti-teleological. Anti-teleological, no, not result-oriented. It has its own intrinsic value. It has its own value in itself. So, Kant says that criteria of any moral law is the goodwill. Any action is good or bad is decided by the fact that whether the action is backed by a goodwill or not. If any action, how much glorious it may seem, if it is not backed by a goodwill, take the example that is in from the Mahabharata itself. One day, Vidura and as well as Duryodhana, they both came to invite Krishna to their house to take a meal. Accidentally, they came in the same day. But Duryodhana was thinking that I will give Krishna such beautiful, delicious food that he will be astonished. In gold plates, in diamond studded spoons, the best food ever can be taken. I will give him. I will give Krishna the food. Vidura says, it will be my good fortune if Krishna comes to my house. I don't have what I can give him, offer him. I will give him in banana leaves, or in this or that. What can I offer him? If he comes, if he accepts my invitation, it is my good fortune that he comes. Duryodhana says that Krishna will say how I can give him food, how can I treat him. Krishna accepted. The other factors are there in the story. Krishna accepted the invitation of Vidura. Because, as Kant says, that it is a goodwill that is important. His goodwill, his will that I will invite Krishna, I will be benefited from his visit. Duryodhana thinks that Krishna will be benefited from my invitation. So it is the goodwill that decides which action is good or which action is bad. It is the only qualification. Without no action is good, how glorified it may seem, without the factor present, that is good. And when I am acting, I must act in such a way that it will be a maxim, universal law. Anyway, this is rigorism of Kant. He also strictly says that rule deontology or follow the rules of ethics, that is enough. And friends, this is in brief. I have just went in the highway of deontology. I have not entered into sublance. And it is the, briefly, so to say, the theory of deontology, and hope you have enjoyed the theories, the views of different philosophers. Thank you. Hello. Hello.
Thank you very much, sir, for your very nice lecture. You have presented deontology in a very simple and plain language, understandable by all, and the examples that you have cited are really interesting. Philosophy family is indebted to you, really it was a good lecture by you. Okay, now it's time for the question and answer session. Over to Devasis Sadangi to put the questions before the expert speaker if there are any questions in the chat box. Over to
Thank,
Devasis Sadangi.
yes. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much for a nice presentation. So there is only a single question from Rasmi Prabha Mahanti. She wants to know, Immanuel Kant stated that if your intention is good, then you will be considered as good person. It violates the law of universal, and how we can say that deontology is a theory of duty for duty's sake.
If we go to detail of Kant's rigorism, that can be said. Here, in this context, I should say that deontology theory says that obey the rule, this much. Obey the rules. Strictly, the moral rules are, ultimate moral rules are categorical imperative. And goodwill, the laws which are made, that I told towards the end, that act in such a way that it can be a maxim, it can be universal law. So, if an action is backed by a goodwill, rigorism has discussed it in detail. If you act in a manner which is backed by, which has the element of goodwill, then it is automatically universal. Automatically universal. And naturally, Kant's theory comes under rules deontology, because he gives importance to deontology. You say that if conscience decides, goodwill decides, my goodwill, obviously, goodwill is similar, universal in everybody. I mean, my goodwill, sense of goodwill, goodwill means for the goodwill of all, universal element. Goodwill, my goodwill, if it is universal, my goodwill will match with your goodwill. Something good is good for everybody. That's it. Act in such a manner that your action will be universal law. Therefore, that way his law is ruled.
Okay. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you. There are no such question as I'm seeing in the chat box. So thank you. So it's now over to Rao, sir.
Hello.
Thank you, Devasis Sadangi, for moderating the question and answer session. So I also once again thank Dr. Anup Rai for his nice lecture. Now we'll move to the second session of today's webinar. In the second session, we have Dr. Jatin Bisoi. He will be speaking on